Thank you for
Absolutely. I've been thinking about this ever since I saw you this morning.
joining.
Same.
Mr. Goodwin, how are you, sir?
Well, how are you?
Doing well.
Okay, I've got 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. What I would like everyone to do
Dadi,
is if you could go to the chat room there.
nisaidie kwa chaja yangu hiyo. Nataka nichukue kebo simu karibu inazima.
Yeah, somebody's talking. But go ahead and put in your name and what
Ya
state
simu
you're in.
USB
That way we
iko
can try
hapa.
to keep track
Iko
of who all might be coming in. And if you're a rookie or if you're somebody new that's interested in officiating, include that in the chat as well. Put your email in there. That way, we'll try to find you a home. Appreciate your showing interest in officiating. We definitely need more folks out on the field, not only in football, but all youth league sports as well. Tonight, though, we're just going to talk about football. So if y'all can go ahead and put that in there, then we'll get going. Let's see. I got a couple more people here waiting to come in. There we go. Got some more. I might be a little bit distracted. I got to keep an eye on who's coming in. Okay, what I had hoped to do tonight was to take a couple of issues that happened during the game last night
Thank you Dad.
and talk about those in the context of how we would have handled those on a Friday night using high school rules. Good news is, in spite of the score, it really was a well-played game. Not a whole lot of goofy things that happened by either team. I think it was well officiated. I'm not going to sit here and critique the officials. But the bad news to all that is that unless somebody saw something that they thought was particularly compelling, I'm not quite sure that there was anything that certainly caught my attention or anything like that. But with that, we'll kind of move on here. So our goal really is we want to provide a forum just to have a discussion. I've got the opportunity to interact with other states, and a couple of them do start talking about the high school season like now. And it keeps everybody engaged, keeps everybody's level of excitement up, keeps everybody into the rule book about understanding things that can happen. And talk about those things now. And then by the time the season starts, it's a good opportunity to really refine our skills and things like that. We're always talking about recruiting new officials. Historically, what tends to happen in a lot of places is you get somebody's interest this time of year, and then maybe we don't reach out to them or say anything to them until the season is about to start in July. At that point, they've kind of forgotten that they were even interested, or we've lost touch with them, and just a missed opportunity there. So this is so what we kind of hope to do here in the North Alabama Football Officials Association is to conduct a probably 2 training sessions a month in January, February, and March. And then try to do a couple extra sessions in April and May. Maybe take a little, take a couple of weeks off, and then we'll get started up big time in June and July. I'll try to do a couple of in-person sessions. Of course, for those that are calling in from different places, may not work too well for y'all, but we are opening up some opportunities to do some training and things like that. So the main thing is, let's get this training in right now. Keep ourselves loosened up a little bit so that when the time comes that we get ready for the season, we don't have as much rust to knock off. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, I don't know how many of y'all have done NCAA games, how many of y'all are doing officiate NCAA games, but our focus is on federation. So that's the high school level rules. One of the things that I've learned to do during the time I've been officiating is anytime that I watch a football game on TV, regardless of the level, I keep my high school rule book right there with me. So that if I happen to see something that catches my attention, like, oh my gosh, I hadn't seen anything like that before, how would I handle that on a Friday night? Then I would go ahead and open up my rule book and see what rules apply, if any of those rules apply at all. I mean, there are things that happen in the NFL and college that is a whole lot different than what we do at high school. That's for a reason. High school kids, even though many of them are really skilled, there are some things we don't want them to do. We don't want them to be exposed to. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep the game fair. So given that we didn't have anything that caught my attention last night, I would like to talk about a couple of things that might be relative to things that we want to look at every now and again. I'm going to look at some kickoff formations. So as we go through this, I might be rambling on a little bit. Then we'll go into the chat room, see what some of your comments might be. Right now, we seem to have just 8 participants here. So I might just open up open it up that everybody could just go ahead and chime in and try not to talk over top of each other. Okay. Then we'll go into defensive pass interference. For those that may not know me, I'm a back judge, Deep 3 official by trade. So something like that is things that I will certainly pay attention to. So we'll take a look at some photos that I did some screen grabs on, talk about some philosophy, get some comments from y'all, and then we'll get going from there. We got 30 minutes to do this, so we'll try to fill this time as best we can. Okay, so we have the ball sitting here at the collegiate level. They'll put the ball at the 35-yard line for a free kick, a normal kickoff. We're not talking about any penalties that might have occurred or anything like that. But the yellow arrow indicates 5 yards back from where that free kick line is. And at the collegiate level, they allow players to have their foot on that yard line. In this case, it'd be the 30-yard line. They can't be back any farther than that. That's a rule change that occurred a couple of years ago. A kickoff is one of the more dangerous kind of plays that we experience in football. You can imagine you got players that are running full speed in opposite directions, going after each other. So one of the things that both NCAA and the Federation figured out was, well, let's kind of make sure nobody gets that much of a running start. So at the NCAA level, they said, okay, we don't want you too far behind, 5 yards behind that free kick line. And to hold you in place, you can't have, more than one of your feet on that You have to have at least 1 foot on that line, or you have to be in front of that line. I'm going to drop out of this in a moment. And I'm going to move over to something else. We'll go into the Get It Right program here. And this is what a high school kickoff would look like. So here we got the ball on the 40-yard line. And as we look across here, you can see that all the players are forward of that line. This person back here, who we think is going to be the kicker, he's allowed to be back behind that line. But everybody else has to be in front of it. In fact, when you get into Rule 6-1-3B, the rule book says, in fact, that to make sure that they're less than 5 yards back, they don't want anybody touching that line. So as a back judge on a 5-man crew, and now in Alabama on the 7-man crew, I'm up there talking to that kicker as that team is lining up. And before I go off to the sideline, waiting for the referee to give the ready for play signal, I look to ensure that we don't have anybody touching that line. So I correct those on the spot. So that's something that we can do some preventive officiating on. Part of the reason that we want to try to fix that in the beginning is that if we happen to see, let me go ahead and run this forward here. So what happened is we had one guy that was more than 5 yards deep, and somebody else decided to kick the ball. God bless these coaches. Some of them want to try to do some fancy things. And when they try to do that, they may not realize that they're violating a rule. So we don't know who's going to kick the ball. We think we know who's going to kick the ball. We got some kid that says, I'm the kicker. And then you have something here that happens that somebody else kicked the ball to try to fool the receiving team. But because we had that one player that was behind that 5 yard from the free kick line, we now have a penalty. One of the things that's different between high school and college is when we see that in high school, we're going to call everything dead right there on the spot. What college does is they'll still drop the flag because that was a foul, but then they'll just tack on that penalty or give the option of tacking on that penalty at the end of the play. So, so for high school, if you're up there in that free kick zone, that neutral zone, and you see that violation, we want to stop that play right away. We don't want those kids, again, running downfield, bumping into each other, crashing into each other, only to have them come back and do it one more time. So that's why we want to call that dead right then and there on the spot. Let me drop out of that for a moment and go back to the screen share here. Okay, and again, I just want to reiterate that that's something we want to correct before we do the ready for play. Now, there are some teams that will form a huddle after you've gone to the sideline. They will wait for you to get off the field before they decide to break formation and line everybody up. And probably what they're trying to do is not let the receiving team know too much in advance who their speedsters are, who their good coverage players are, and things like that. And that's okay. There's nothing illegal about that. They just need to kick that ball within 25 seconds after the ready for play is given. But what will sometimes happen, and actually it happened to me during one of my games this year, is that the kids broke the huddle. They got lined up to kick. The kicker, went up and kicked the ball real quick, but we had players that were beyond that 5-yard mark. So fortunately, I was having a good night. I saw that and blew it dead right away. Coaches have a lot of things that they try to do. There are some teams that may not pay as much attention to the kicking game. So as we were getting ready after we marked them off 5 yards and get ready for the next kick, I put them into my own huddle. I explained the rule to them, told them if they wanted to break the huddle right away and do that kick, just stay off of that 35-yard line. Well, in this case, it had to be off the 30-yard line because there's a 5-yard penalty. So it disrupts the game. It's kind of a tacky little 5-yard penalty, but the whole thing is in place because of safety to keep those kids from having too much of a running start. So we delayed the game for the opening kickoff, and then got on to business and didn't have any more problems after that. Okay, anybody have any comments about doing a free kick? Stop share here a little bit.
Actually, yeah, one question. Where does the threshold, the backup threshold lie if there are multiple 5-yard penalties going into the free kick?
There isn't. I mean, it's one of those situations that if they continually do some stupid things, maybe we get to the point where we just kind of go over and talk to the coach and say, look, you better put somebody out here that knows what's going on. If there's a foul, there's a foul. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, is that where you were going, Dan?
Yeah, I was just curious if there was because there's no such thing as loss of down at that point. So I was just curious how far it goes.
No, in fact, I don't recall if it was a playoff game that we had or if it was towards the end of the season that we started off with, I think it was an unsportsmanlike foul that already had him move back 15 yards. And then I forget what they screwed up, but we wound up bringing them back another 5 yards. They kicked the ball out of bounds. The coach has the option of taking the ball where it went out of bounds, or there's a scenario, a number of scenarios that play into that. But he said, no, back them up 5 more yards and kick it again. So, yeah, we'll push them all the way back, until we start bumping into the goal line, So, yeah, it's one of those things that, you don't think would happen, but I guess at some point, if it decides to happen, then it's going to happen. So let me go into one more scenario here. And go into this pop-up kick. So the kicking team can recover the ball when it's gone 10 yards and if it's hit the ground, and that can happen in any order. 10 yards, ball hitting the ground. So what kickers were able to figure out is if I can drive that ball into the ground and have it go up into the air, once it's gone 10 yards, we've already established that we can now recover that ball. And that opened up a safety issue where you had players looking up in the sky, waiting for that ball to come down, and they're getting creamed by the kicking team. So the rule was put in place that the pop-up kick is illegal. And we'll show you here step by step what that looks like. So they drive the ball into the ground, and then it goes high into the air. as though he kicked it right up off the tee. And the way that looks in live is like that. It bounces up, it goes on into the air. Now the kicking team could recover it, and that's where the safety issues came into play. By comparison, if you look there on the right, you're going to see that he just kind of kicks it right up into the air. That's something that's referred to as a pooch kick. Instead of kicking it to that deep receiver, they try to get it over front of that front line of the receiving team, and maybe the ball will be bouncing around, or maybe there's somebody back there that might be able to catch it or muff it or do something like that. And it's the advantage that the kicking team is trying to gain. So that one on the right is legal. The one on the left is not. So for those of us that are up there in that 10-yard area, on the sidelines watching what's going on, that's one of the things that we have to call dead immediately, because again, we have players up there that are just 10 yards apart from each other, running full speed, crashing into each other, and we want to avoid that as best we can. So that's a loud whistle, that's a long whistle, get everybody's attention and get them to stop. Anything on a pop-up kick? Okay, let me go back into the presentation here. Okay, if anybody new showed up, go into the chat room, enter your name and state that you're in. And if you're a rookie or interested in officiating, please add that there as well, so that when everything is done here, we'll try to find you a home. If you're not here in Alabama, we'll find out, who you can contact to continue training and get you up on the field. Okay, I don't have any animations on this. It's a screenshot that I grabbed last night on some of the discussions that was going on. So they're on the, really these are both the same picture. I just zoomed in on the right side there. So there at the end of the first half, there was that one-handed catch that happened in the end zone, resulted in a touchdown for Georgia. A couple people were saying, well, was that pass interference? So Rule 7-5-10 covers pass interference. And the short version is, are you restricting somebody from catching the ball? And it doesn't matter if you're offense or defense. If that ball's in the air, you got the right to catch that ball. So as much as we can admire these athletes that are on the field these days, when somebody is trying to go up for a one-handed catch, that's a signal for those of us that are back there officiating that, okay, there might be something wrong. But we can't assume that number 24 was actually grabbing the left arm. And when you start looking at some of the replays, his left arm was kind of in front of the player. We have a thing called an arm bar that precludes a player from getting downfield. And this was not an arm bar. So that's one of the pass interference things. So that's a no call right there for an arm bar. But 24 does have the right to go after the ball. So if he knew what he was doing and kind of pinning the left arm of number 5, good on him. But if I'm not seeing him grab that arm, that left arm of number 5, I don't have a foul. And nobody called it last night. That's going to be a back judge call. We got 2 officials on that sideline, a short wing and a deep wing, that are probably about 20 yards apart from each other. With the backs of these players to those 2 officials, they wouldn't have been able to make that call anyway. So it's up to the back judge to decide, why was that player making a one-handed catch? If you don't see it, you don't call it. Because remember, you got two teams involved here. If that was an incomplete pass, Georgia was going to be saying, well, number 24, grabbed the left arm. And if we did throw a flag, TCU would have been asking, well, what's the foul? Well, he grabbed his arm. Well, did he? And if you can't talk with integrity to say that that's what happened, you got to see the whole thing. And even here, just trying to do a screen grab and zooming in, I would make that call. The other part that we want to talk about here, as far as the officiating went last night, there was a similar call that could have been made against Georgia that wasn't called. So there wasn't anything there. Pass interference is a judgment call either way, but I'll credit the officiating crew that they were consistent in the way they handled both teams. What you call in the first quarter better be the same thing you call in the fourth quarter. And if you didn't call it in the first, then you better not call it in the fourth. The teams will figure out what you call, what you don't call, be it pass interference, be it holding, whatever it might be. They may not like it, but once they realize that you're consistent in your calls, then they can tell their players to act a certain way or not act a certain way. So I'll give the officiating crew kudos, at least in that regard. And especially given the way the game played out, number one, you're excited that you've been selected to do a championship game, and then all of a sudden you see the thing going out of control. Credit the teams for not going crazy. Those are good opportunities to have fights and such, but the officiating crew kind of stuck in there. They didn't throw any sloppy flags. They seemed like they were still engaged in the game. So yeah, just good job on everybody's part there. Okay, we got about 4 minutes left here on the Zoom call. I'm going to do another one of these 2 weeks from tonight. I'm thinking about talking about forward progress. We'll see if anything goofy happens in any of the NFL playoffs that we might want to reference. I'll post that up on Facebook. For those that might be interested in, I just gave a brief demo of what is in the Get It Right training program. Go to getitrighttraining.com and you can buy yourself a copy right there. Any comments, any questions? Anything that, especially for any veteran officials on here that I said that might have made you cringe? What do you think?
Good job, Bob. I'm very appreciative of you doing this, and I think it's a great idea, and it's a good way to stay engaged.
Hey, we're in this thing together.
Hey,
Yes,
We're going to
sir.
be on the field with some of these officials, so we want to make sure that we got everybody all looking good,
Absolutely.
it's good stuff, Bob. I don't know if you remember me. I met you a few years back in San Antonio at the big officiating summit down there. But I keep track of you, man, and I like the training, man. Keep it going. It's good stuff. Even though, being here in Texas, I do work NCAA rules with exceptions, but I always like looking at HS.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're on here from Texas. So do y'all do your kickoffs the same way?
Yeah, we do this kickoffs the same way, and I apologize. I'm kind of in on 2 meetings. And this is kind of a nitpicky thing, but one of the points of discussion with us as well is the foot being on the line.
Yeah.
We had some formations where they're in a 3-point stance. The hand is inside the line, but the feet are outside the line. So we kind of had a point of emphasis on a foot on the line is foot on the
Yeah.
line and inside. So
Yeah.
other than that, no major deviations.
All right. Good to go. Hey, does anybody know how I save these chats?
Just copy and paste or
Okay.
screenshot.
All right. Something tells me I might not be able to do that. Okay. All right. Okay, well, if that's I think we're down to under a minute. So hey, I appreciate you all showing up, and we'll catch up with you in about 2 weeks. Especially for those here in Alabama or those that have my email address. If there's anything in particular you want to talk about or any comments about how we're doing this thing, let me know. We'll continue to improve.
Thanks, Bob. Enjoyed it.
All right, y'all have a good
Good job, Bob. Thank you.
weeks here. Take care.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks,
Yep.
Bob. Appreciate the invite. Enjoyed it.
Bye now.